A new Cold War seems to be brewing, not on land, but in the silent, crushing depths of our oceans. This is the story of a cover-up that is literally bubbling to the surface. For 30 years, the official line was simple: leave the sunken nuclear subs alone, they are safer down there. A joint Norwegian-Russian team surveyed the wreck again. They found clouds coming out of a ventilation pipe for the reactor. But a secret expedition just blew that theory out of the water. They found a leak so radioactive it shocked the experts. This discovery forces us to rewrite the history of the Cold War and rethink the future of our oceans. We are not just looking at a shipwreck, we are looking at a slow-motion Chernobyl happening underwater, and there is no way to put the lid back on. The radioactive nightmare we can no longer ignore. With the end of the Cold War and the sudden collapse of the financial situation in the East, the military machine was suddenly starved of cash. Of course, that included the once mighty Navy. The admirals suddenly found they could not keep ships in commission, and more importantly, they could not keep their nuclear submarines running. It was a chaotic time. Most people think nuclear submarines are safe once they sink. They assume the deep ocean, with its crushing pressure and freezing temperatures, freezes everything in time. That is a lie. Scientists recently lowered a state-of-the-art remote-controlled vehicle to the wreck of the Comsolids, also known as the K-278. What they saw on the screen made their blood run cold. A vent on the side of the sub was puffing out a strange, ghostly cloud. When they tested the water, the numbers were off the charts. This discovery forces us to look at every other wreck in the ocean differently. The time bomb has officially started ticking. The official story says an electrical short in the 7th compartment sparked the blaze. But here's the deal: not everyone buys that story. You see, the Comsolids was on a mission to break records. It was pushing the limits, diving deeper and running faster than any boat before it. It was built with a hull made entirely of titanium, a metal that is incredibly expensive and difficult to work with. But it allowed the ship to go to depths that would crush a normal American submarine like a soda can. And this is where the wild theories start. One theory says the fire was not an accident at all. Some experts whisper that the sub was testing a new, highly experimental weapon. Maybe a torpedo with a bizarre new fuel source, something unstable. A fuel that ignited when it should not have. Others believe the sub did not just catch fire, it was hunted. They point to the fact that this was the height of the Cold War. A top-secret titanium sub, all alone in the deep, was the perfect target. The theory goes that a United States or British hunter sub was trailing it, got too close, and the two machines collided in the dark. The impact sparked the fire that doomed the ship. Whatever the cause, the result was a total nightmare. Electrical systems failed. The tanks that helped the ship float would not work. The crew fought the fire for 6 hours in brutal conditions. They surfaced, but the fire was too intense. The sub, a symbol of Soviet power, slipped beneath the waves and plunged more than a mile, almost 5,500 feet, to the ocean floor. It was a tragedy, and for 30 years, that is all it was, a sad story and a memorial. But here's the catch. The Komsomolets was not just a sub, it was a nuclear weapon carrier. Down in that wreck, sitting in the dark, is a 19-megawatt nuclear reactor, and that is not even the worst part. The crazy part is, it is also carrying 2 nuclear-tipped torpedoes. These torpedoes are not like the ones in the movies. They do not just have uranium, they have something far worse: plutonium. Each one is packed with about 28 pounds of it. Plutonium is one of the most toxic substances known to man. A single speck of it, if you breathe it in, is enough to end your life. And now there are pounds of it sitting on the seafloor. For years, scientists said it is fine. The water is too deep. The water is too cold. They said the plutonium is stable. But not everyone was convinced. The Norwegians, whose coastline is right there, were worried. So in 2019, a joint mission did something new. They sent a state-of-the-art remote-controlled robot down to the wreck. They were going to record what was really going on. The first footage was haunting. The titanium skin, which was supposed to be rust-proof, was covered in damage. But then the robot got close to a ventilation pipe, a small opening in the side of the sub. What they saw made... At first, nobody believed the data. The signal came from a place that was supposed to be silent. No shipping lanes, no military exercises, no undersea cables. Just black water and pressure so intense it could crush steel like paper. The anomaly appeared as a pulse, short, sharp, and repeating every 47 seconds. Too regular to be natural, too deep to be human. When the analysts overlaid the signal on old Cold War maps, one detail made their blood run cold. The pulse was coming from directly beneath a classified Soviet-era no-record zone, a place that officially never existed. The first assumption was simple: sensor error. The second assumption was geological activity. But then the pulse changed. It responded. When a research drone pinged the area, the signal shifted frequency, not randomly, but deliberately, like something was answering back. That's when the military stepped in. The object below. A classified autonomous submersible was dispatched under the cover of a climate research mission. Its job was not to investigate, but to confirm. At 4,900 meters, the cameras picked up something impossible. A structure, not a wreck, not debris, a structure embedded into the seabed itself. Perfect angles, smooth surfaces, no corrosion. Whatever it was, it hadn't been there for decades. It had been there for much longer. The hull, if you could call it that, wasn't steel, titanium, or any known alloy. Spectroanalysis failed. The material didn't reflect light properly. It absorbed it. Then the Geiger counters spiked. Not radiation, something worse. A form of energy that didn't match nuclear signatures, electromagnetic fields, or thermal output. The drone's systems began to fail one by one, but before the feed went dark, it captured one final image. An opening. Not damaged, not broken. Opened. The Soviet file. That image triggered the release of a sealed archive, documents locked away since 1973. A failed Soviet project with a name that had been scrubbed from history. Project Miraz 7. Officially, it was a deep-sea listening platform. Unofficially, it was something else entirely. The documents described an encounter, not a construction. Soviet submarines in the late 1960s had detected the same pulse. They sent divers down. Only one diver came back. He couldn't speak, couldn't sleep, couldn't stop drawing the same symbol over and over again. A circle, broken by a vertical line. The project was abandoned. The site was sealed, and every crew member involved was reassigned or disappeared. The last line in the file reads, "The object is not inactive. It is waiting for a condition to be met." Why it's activating now? Ocean temperatures in that region have risen by 1.8 degrees. Pressure patterns have shifted. The pulse is getting faster. And the most disturbing part? The signal is no longer isolated. Other sensors in completely different oceans are starting to hear the same rhythm. Whatever is down there was never asleep. It was dormant. And now, something we've done has woken it up. The first shutdown was written off as coincidence. A deep-sea fiber optic relay went dark less than 200 miles from the anomaly. No explosion, no seismic event. It simply stopped. When engineers examined the failure, they found something impossible. The cable hadn't been cut. It hadn't been crushed. It had been rearranged. The internal fibers were twisted into a repeating geometric pattern, the same symbol the Soviet diver had drawn before he died. A broken circle, a vertical line. That's when the phrase from the Miraz 07 file resurfaced, waiting for a condition to be met. The countdown nobody announced. The pulse rate changed again. from every 47 seconds to 32, then 19. It wasn't random. It was syncing with something. Satellite data revealed the truth. The signal aligned perfectly with tidal harmonics, the natural resonance of the planet's oceans. The object wasn't sending a message, it was tuning itself. Scientists ran simulations and came to a terrifying conclusion. If the pulse reached a specific frequency, the surrounding water would enter a state of forced resonance, a feedback loop capable of collapsing pressure layers over hundreds of miles. Not a wave, not a tsunami, something worse. A column failure, where the ocean itself momentarily loses structural stability. Anything in that zone would be torn apart. The second dive. Against every recommendation, authorization was given for a manned descent. The crew was told it was a verification mission. They were not told about Moraz 7. They were not told about the diver. At 5,100 meters, the sub's external lights began to dim, not from power loss, but absorption. The water around them looked thicker, heavier. Then the sound began, not through speakers, inside their skulls. A low, rhythmic vibration that caused nosebleeds, vertigo, in panic. The pilot tried to abort. The controls didn't respond. Something else had control. The structure was closer now, and it was changing. Segments that had appeared smooth in the drone footage were unfolding, like petals, like doors. Not a machine. Radiation sensors stayed silent. So did EM detectors. The object wasn't technological, at least in any way humans understand technology. Biological scans failed too. It wasn't alive. It wasn't dead. One scientist watching the live feed whispered a sentence that was later removed from the transcript. This is infrastructure. The realization hit everyone at once. This wasn't a probe. It wasn't a weapon. It was a node, part of something much larger, something global. The network. Within 72 hours, similar pulses were detected in the Southern Ocean, near the Mariana Trench, beneath the Arctic ice shelf, always deep, always hidden, always dormant, until now. Old Cold War maps revealed the pattern. Every site matched a classified black zone, areas both NATO and the Soviet Union had quietly agreed never to explore. Not treaties, warnings. The ocean floor wasn't a graveyard, it was a grid. Why now? The final analysis was buried in a restricted briefing. Human activity had finally crossed a threshold. Continuous low-frequency sonar, deep-sea mining vibrations, nuclear sub-traffic, tectonic interference. We hadn't attacked the system, we had completed it, like flipping the last switch in a machine we didn't know we were assembling. The pulse rate stabilized, not slowing, synchronizing. And then, for the first time, it changed direction. Upward. The last transmission. The manned sub was released, not ejected, released, as if whatever held it no longer needed to. The crew survived, but none of them were the same. One refused to speak again, another quit and vanished. The pilot recorded a private message before resigning. It was never meant for the public, but it leaked. It didn't react to us, it acknowledged us, like we finally showed up. The oceans have been quiet ever since. Too quiet. No more pulses, no signals. Which is worse, because systems don't go silent when they fail. They go silent when they finished initializing.